Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Monthly Blend, a monthly video podcast brought to you by Next, powered by Shulman Rogers and Connectpreneur. I'm Tian Wong. I'm the founder and host of the Connectpreneur community, which is a global community of over 30,000 investors, founders, and business leaders. I'm also the CEO of Opus 8, which helps companies and fund managers raise money through our network of accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the U.S., along with my co-host, Anthony Millen, who's the founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. We are pleased to bring you this monthly video podcast, which covers trends, information, fascinating interviews with game changers and innovators here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore Metroplex. Anthony and I started this podcast about 2.5 years ago as a way to increase awareness of cool, innovative happenings in our region, to break down the various silos in the region, and to serve as a mechanism to do our part to help bring the region together and to help foster innovation and entrepreneurship here. And today, we're absolutely thrilled to have a conversation with 3 leading investors and entrepreneurs in the Baltimore, Washington cybersecurity community. In alphabetical order, we have Maurice Boissiere, who's the Chief Customer Officer of DataTribe. We have Brian Gallagher, CEO and co-founder of CodeLock, and Larry Letow, who's the CEO of US CyberCX. And I'd love to have each of our guests self-introduce briefly before I turn things over to Anthony. Why don't we start with you, Maurice? How are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me. Good to see familiar faces and to meet some new faces. So by introduction, I am a partner in a firm called DataTribe. DataTribe is kind of uniquely positioned as a seed stage cybersecurity investor, harnessing the power of the intelligence community in the DMV. It's about half of our companies have founders from that community.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Next, Brian Gallagher, CEO and co-founder of CodeLock. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Tian. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here. Yeah, I'm Brian Gallagher, as Tian mentioned, CEO and co-founder of CodeLock. I started my career post 9/11 in the federal sector with the United States Secret Service in their technical security division. But after about a decade, I decided to get into the private sector and become a serial entrepreneur. So this is now the 3rd company that I am working with, and very excited to be here and talking about cybersecurity specifically and what we're doing with CodeLock around the region.
Fantastic, Brian. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your service as well.
You're welcome.
And last but not least, we have Larry Letow, CEO of US CyberCX. Welcome, Larry.
Yeah, how you doing all? CyberCX, we're now a little over 4 years old. We bought 24 companies in the within the first really 18 months. That took us to about 400 now. 4.5 years later, we're now 1,400. Really focused solely on the 5 I's and delivering end-to-end cybersecurity services. And in addition to that, I also chair the Cybersecurity Hall.
Thanks, Larry. And Larry was also chair of the Maryland Tech Council when I was on the board. So
years ago.
Years ago. Yeah, you were a fixture in the community. Now I'd love to turn things over to my co-host, Anthony Millen. Anthony is a serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist, as well as one of the nation's leading startup attorneys. Anthony is the founder and chair of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, which is disrupting the way that legal services are being delivered to early stage companies. Next has a unique fixed price structure, which allows for expert legal advice in a way that early stage companies who are all on a tight budget can manage their costs. In the last 2 years, Next has been recognized by winning LegalWeek's Startup Emerging Law Firm of the Year, as well as being a finalist as the American Lawyer's Most Innovative Law Firm and LegalWeek's Most Innovative Legal Department awardee. Congratulations, Anthony, and take it away.
Great. Well, thank you, Brian and Larry and Maurice. It's great to have everyone with us today. The place we'd like to start is to really frame changes that you've seen in the DMV cyber ecosystem from both an investor, founder, and you're all leaders in helping build the cyber ecosystem, both not only in this region, but well beyond that. But what have you seen in terms of changes in the ecosystem if you look at it today versus a few years ago? And maybe, Maurice, we can start with you.
Cyber is probably unique in this industry in that, like, it's the the golden goose, the gift that keeps on giving. So more talent begets more talent. We can thank everybody on this call for their tax dollars that have contributed to the big investment that our government has made in cybersecurity in this region, and now it's one of the leaders. So it's like anything, the rich get richer kind of thing. So cyber in this area has just progressed in my mind. When I think about DataTribe, in 2016, which is when DataTribe started, there were really 3 cybersecurity investors in the area. It was the DataTribe was kind of just starting, Paladin, multiple funds, and Blue Ventures. So those are kind of like the games in town. Since then, you can probably add 3 more. You had Squadra come up in Baltimore. You've got even new funds like Runtime that Mike Sutton is doing. A lot of innovation. And of course, you can't forget Ron Gula and what he's doing. So kind of Gula's kind of like the pillar of this community and has since kind of codified his efforts into Gula Tech. So all that to kind of just demonstrate how this region, how vibrant the region is when it comes to cybersecurity. So think of it as a watering hole. There wouldn't be more VCs here if there was more deal flow here. So I think VCs just kind of act as a proxy for the deal activity. All those VCs are pretty much seed and Series A. So it just kind of speaks to it's still a very nascent community. It will take time, but as more companies get to kind of growth stage, we have a number of funds, a number of companies that have done their Series B and beyond. But as more and more do that, I think you'll see growth stage capital come to this area as well for cybersecurity. So the region continues to kind of blossom as a beacon of cybersecurity. You can look at the data. We have more cybersecurity talent per capita than any other region in the world, including Tel Aviv. So, so I just think it's just gotten stronger and stronger.
Great. Thanks, Maurice. Larry, you're a leader in this field in so many different ways. What have you seen over the last several years?
Yeah, Maurice is really spot on. I think, first of all, this area is blessed, right? We have Cyber Command, we have NSA, we have CIA, we have NIST. These are all big agencies that fuel innovation, and as well as, services companies. So, I think to have those kind of bases of dollars that are flowing through, that just allows innovation to occur within these agencies that get pulled out and outside the agencies. And now, we're living under AI right now, and AI is hot, and products are being developed that use AI, that products are being developed that will manage AI and protect you from AI. So there's a lot of ecosystem technologies that are constantly flying.
We're seeing that AI showing up in so many places, and that's critical in the cyberspace. Brian, what have you seen?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. First, I agree with everything that was said prior. In fact, it was interesting as Maurice was kind of talking about some of the players. Several of my LPs that are either direct funders or through other investment channels are all interconnected with everybody that we're talking about, right? So it's this ecosystem. However, when you're looking at sort of the past versus now related to cyber investment and security startup, we can't talk about this without acknowledging COVID and what that's done over the last several years. My company, CodeLock, was in a unique position where we spun it out into its own entity in the middle of 2021. Middle of 2021, cyber was booming. Big deals were still getting written. We had, I think the first $1 million that we raised was at a $80 million valuation with no cap, and we didn't even have a product, right? And those times have come and those times have gone. And so I had just sent out an investor update to all of my investors for Q1 of this year. And what I highlighted was some stats looking back at 2023, looking at all of the tech companies that actually failed last year and failed in 2022. And so what I'm seeing from a market perspective is now that we're coming out of that, the sort of the here and now versus the then is changing opportunity, and it's changing investors' willingness to put money in different places. That being said, DC is a unique market when it comes to startups and getting money and capital from investors. Most of the people that Maurice had mentioned come from the GovCon arena one way or another. And so there's a lot of talk of the federal money that's flowing through this region. And again, I started within the federal government, so that's my background as well. However, with my company, with CodeLock, we've been able to get on the national stage. So we've been doing a lot in Silicon Valley, and a West Coast Silicon Valley investor is very, very different than an East Coast investor. And I think a major reason for that is the background of the LPs or the background of what's made up the money that goes into the fund. There are some investors I talk to out in the Valley, and talking about government, it's taboo and it can hurt you. And then there are investors on the East Coast that will discount your value because they're used to working with government dollars versus commercial money. So it's an interesting landscape to navigate the two and see where you fit. And we've learned a lot of things over the last few years because of that.
So, in terms of talking about COVID and kind of, we've talked a little bit about where we've come from. I'd like to now turn next to kind of where you see we're going to. So if you look now at your different companies and look at where you think the region should be around cyber in the future, what are you seeing and what are actions that you would like to see the leaders across the cyber space take today to help drive us in the direction that you feel like we need to go in the cyber space in the region? And maybe, Larry, we could start with you this time.
Well, I mean, from a non-investor perspective, we got to continue doing a better job first communicating. We do have programs and agencies that are set up to share, but we're not still sharing at the degree that we need to if we want to really develop this ecosystem that we all talk about. I think that's sort of the first thing. The second thing is we've had some issues with SEC protecting the CISOs of these companies. I think we have to do a better job of aligning that without threatening the job that they have to do every day. There's not clear information that's coming from that agency to allow from companies to protect their own and to do what's right internally into the organization. So we're seeing a lot of problems with it, that came from Uber's CISO and SolarWinds CISO that we're still trying to come up with a better solution than there is now.
Brian, what are you trying to kind of drive towards and what would you like to see?
And when I was thinking about this question and thinking about, you said, the sort of the global community, what people should be pushing for together, it's somewhat of an interesting thought, because whether you line up 10 investors or you line up 10 cybersecurity CEOs, everybody's going to have a different opinion on what they're focused on and what they think the priority is. From my perspective, we're very focused in on securing software development. And our belief is that if you can't fix the foundation of what you're working on, then there's no point in trying to guard the doors and the walls and everything else. The federal government, since SolarWinds, since early 2021, agrees with that. I mean, they put a lot of emphasis and focus on secure software development, on software bill of materials, on software supply chain. And so I think that's a topic in an area that people need to really come around and start looking at as we move into the future here.
And from a investor perspective, Maurice, is there anything, as spending time with other leading investors in the space, some of the groups that you mentioned earlier, are there things that you're all talking about in terms of what you would like to see?
Great question. I certainly think what Larry and Brian hit on are two themes that are dear to us. So first, I'll lead with let's put AI aside for a second, because everything's AI nowadays. It's a cacophony of AI. The big theme that they both hit on is regulatory drivers of cybersecurity hygiene kind of thing at a big company level. So I think you'll see more of that, and that's one of the areas where DC is uniquely positioned. I mean, we've got the biggest regulatory body in the world around this stuff. So we're very long on a sort of Brian's thesis of secure by design, looking at how do you kind of build the house to withstand an earthquake from the start, not after the fact. And then, and likewise, just for that, kind of Larry hit on all the government stuff. We are very long on how do you take government talent and harness it for commercial protection. It's kind of like the DataTribe thesis of what we do. I kind of feel like, our Achilles heel is government, right? So government is, it feeds the talent pool here, it feeds the innovation pool here. And the challenge is that 80 to 90% of that talent only knows government. They only know how that kind of ecosystem works. So what happens is a lot of them come out with great ideas and they kind of pitch back to the government, or they languish into the government. And nothing's wrong with that, by the way. DC is, in my mind, one of the, if not the most innovation capital of the world. Probably that everybody who looks at innovation doesn't include GovCon. Like for some reason, it gets chopped off, and all these great DoD, suppliers get cut out of like the idea of innovation, but they're high tech. They just deal with a different purchasing cycle, right? So teaching people how to like deal with more commercial markets, like what Brian was talking about, is a huge area where we have to do. We like to say here at DataTribe, in part because we're down the street from Tenable, if we can just create 10 Tenables in the region, we'll be good. Because a big company success begets more startups, and each one of those kind of births the next generation. So we've got Tenable, sort of here in the Maryland area. And I think if we can just continue to kind of feed that cycle of great companies growing up and then they throw up more entrepreneurs, we'll be good. Our biggest challenge, obviously, is this thing called the Potomac River, and the fact that the collaboration between Maryland and Virginia is just horrific. Like, it's a communication thing that it's one of the communication areas that Larry was talking about. Yeah, it'd be great if we had like an some kind of peacemaker between the two that could kind of make it so we all kind of play nice. But like, I get it. Everybody wants the jobs on their side of the river, so I totally understand it. But it certainly gets in the way of like the flow of talent and money.
In terms of, we talk ecosystem level, is there anything at your own companies, if you look at what's kind of most exciting to you coming up with your own companies, Brian, what is...
For us, the most exciting thing, and Maurice mentioned regulation a few minutes ago, we built CodeLock and the idea of CodeLock around regulatory changes that were coming and things that we foreseen. Very specifically, back in May of 2021, the president signed an executive order related to better securing the software supply chain and the nation's cybersecurity. That executive order was supposed to go into effect last summer, but didn't. Typical government got pushed a year. Well, it's now going into effect. So, companies developing critical software that are being sold to the federal government now have till June to comply, and everybody else has just 3 months later until September. I mean, I talked to a lot of tier one investors back in 2021, and we saw where this was going. We knew what was coming out of the White House. We had the ability to actually provide information early on to the White House related to this topic set. But the other investors who weren't within the DC market didn't understand what we foresaw. Well, now it's happening. I mean, now you see it in the news. Now commercial companies are taking action and putting money down to focus in on this area. And as a business owner, we're all about creating business and making money and developing revenue. And we've been waiting for 3 years for this moment, and we're excited to see that start happening and the fruit come from that.
Very exciting to, after these years, to see that all coming to play now. Larry, what about?
From CyberCX, I mean, for us, the excitement for us is we're a global company, and that gives us a very unique view. So we see things happening in the APAC region that the United States, whether it's type of breaches or certain actions that occur, same thing with the US and going to UK or going to the APAC. And we have the ability that, we share that across our global viewpoint to all of our consultants. as well as all of our clients. So we provide them with the unique threat intelligence information. There's a ton of data out there, and it's a question of how you organize it, how do you deliver it, how do you read it, and how you implement it. And so, we work with our clients to do that.
And Maurice, before we head back to TN, what's going on at DataTribe that's coming up?
Yeah, well, we've our last couple of chips on the table have been in Secure by Design, referencing the executive order that Brian talked about. It's kind of in Anchorman, it's kind of a big deal. But what you'll see is, I think for us, it's the notion that security isn't just for security professionals anymore. Like, we've got one company that's pure, it's software security, but it's not selling to the CISO, it's selling to the DevOps community, right? You're seeing just how critical security is to the enterprise. And let's face it, 99% of cybersecurity companies are enterprise or SMB, whatever, but they're not consumer-esque companies. But you're seeing how critical it is to the enterprise. So we're excited just about just the pervasiveness of cyber. As long as there's digital innovation and transformation happening in the world, there will be, and there are human beings involved, there will be cybersecurity, because you will never ever, and this is not like dystopian, but you'll never solve it, right? Because human beings by nature are crafty, and unless you can fix human beings, you can't get rid of cybersecurity. Like just like they say, half the problems with cybersecurity have nothing to do with technology. It's the people, right? So cybersecurity will be here for a while, and it's just refreshing to see it kind of get out of red stapler land, if anybody remembers the Office. But to get out of being in a basement somewhere into the light of day, where companies are giving it giving the hygiene the justice it deserves.
Well, thank you all of three of you for insights on just the overall ecosystem when it comes to cyber, and sharing some of the exciting things going on with your companies. I'd now like to, TN, turn it back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Anthony. So for our panel, I've read several studies, interviews, and surveys of Fortune 100 CEOs, and cybersecurity risk is always ranked 1 or 2 as top of mind for these corporate leaders, and obviously for small businesses as well. We have this hype with AI, quantum computing, whether it's here today or tomorrow, will be a reality at some point. My first question for you guys is, where do you see the greatest impacts of artificial intelligence and quantum in the cyberspace over the next, say, 3 to 4 years? And maybe, Brian, let's start with you on that.
So when I think of cyber, quantum AI, and into the future, one of the things that I tend to hear from people, whether they're talking at events or other speakers, is that quantum is going to just destroy cyber and going to be able to, break into things easily and so on. I don't take that approach. When I think of this topic, I think of the old, yin and yang circle from my martial arts days. And if quantum is going to be able to break encryption, well, quantum is going to be able to create encryption. And so there's really 2 sides of this picture and in this story that we're looking at. Maurice made a comment earlier about kind of putting AI to the side. Yeah, every company has to deal with AI right now, one way or another. We're modeling software developer behaviors and looking at anomalies and things along those lines on how a software is interacting, the flag threats and so on. That's going to continue out. We're working on looking at post-quantum encryption algorithms from a cryptography perspective and how that fits into our proprietary tech. And so for a business owner, understanding what's coming 2, 3, 5 years down the road and how you're fitting that into the product that you're bringing to market, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Larry, you guys are acquiring companies. I mean, how much does go for it?
Yeah, whether it's AI or quantum, you sort of have to remember that the sort of the cyber criminals, they'll have it too, right? So we won't be the other ones having it, and we'll probably be the ones that be creating guardrails for us, and they won't have any. So, I mean, for us, it enables us to react, right? Whether that reaction is through automation, whether that action is giving us data quicker, information quicker, on the OT side, you're still going to have human involvement, but you still want to be able to get to that point quicker. So it's going to help us from a defense mechanism. But you got to remember, even outside the company, I mean, they're using AI to, create fake videos, create fake voicing, with only 9 seconds of, somebody's voice, you can create a whole conversation and grab information. So, education is going to be a massive play. And, and we're going to have to teach every level of the organization not to trust, right? It's that zero trust model that we learned from a cyber and IT perspective, but that's now going to become the fabric through the whole organization. And we have to educate them because criminals, cyber criminals have no zip code and we cannot see them. We don't know where they're coming from or when they come. So we have to react to that and build that defense up.
Yeah. Got it. Mo, how about you guys? You guys are sort of at the front lines of seeing these, early stage opportunities.
AI, to me, it's like the 3 wheels of real estate: location, location, location. The 3 wheels of technology today seems to be AI, 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 and every now and then you get an AI pitch that actually makes sense. It's not just like there's a bunch of buzzwords. But when you think about AI, there's the 3 verticals are in cyber. There's AI from a threat standpoint. Larry hit on the ability to fish better, right? The ability to mimic people better. And like I said earlier, as long as it's humans, there's a need for security because they're crafty. And, on the flip side, there's people who are just gullible. So, you always have that in terms of the threat vectors related to AI. And the big thing with AI, I think, AI and machine learning have been in cyber for a long time, right? What we're really talking about is the advent of LLM, the advent of the hardware to kind of make this stuff possible. So that's new threat vectors are huge. One thing that we didn't talk about, the threat vector of data poisoning. That's a huge one. No, there hasn't been any breaches on that yet, but the idea that these AI models are not safe from being breached themselves. And the effect of breaching an AI model isn't just you get into one person. Literally, you can impact a whole ecosystem if you can you can play with somebody's model. So you have that. The other one that's on the plus side is the productivity that it provides, not just to all kind of white collar professions, but especially in cyber. In cybersecurity, one of the biggest sort of threats / challenges is just the skill gap. The skill gap, the talent gap, right? There are 4 million jobs that are unfilled right now in cybersecurity. So this will help that a lot. Literally, I know people, this is horrible to say on a podcast, but people who keep 2, sometimes 3 cybersecurity jobs concurrently, because there's just so much demand out there for people who know how to do the job. So this will really help with that so that you can start to fill those needs. Then the last piece is just solutions to answer the problem, right? We don't know what the solutions are yet. We are literally in the first, the top of the first inning, this AI LLM game. So the solutions are coming and we'll figure it out. So AI, I'm super bullish. There's no such thing as AI because everything is AI now. And so super bullish on that. Quantum, as an investor, the hard thing with quantum is not if, it's when, right? It's a long game. I would imagine the people who do drug discovery investments are kind of used to this, but you just don't know when quantum computers are going to get there. They will get there. So it's the Bill Gates thing. We always underestimate the time frame, and we overestimate the time frame. We underestimate the impact. We'll get there, and when we get there, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a whole new world that nobody anticipated. But quantum computers are a long way off from being commercially viable.
Yeah, line Maurice reminded me of it's AI is not going to replace your job, but the person who knows AI will replace your job.
Hey, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So for us, we're still, we don't really view what we're doing as any more AI centric than the other. I mean, I think the AI infrastructure bets have been placed. There are more to come, but those bets have been placed, and that was kind of the first wave. But now you're seeing a lot more sort of AI-enabled vertical applications, and cybersecurity has multiple ones. And that's
shifting gears to a topic that our viewers really like to hear about is funding. Maurice, let's stay with you on this. Where's the funding market right now for early stage cyber companies, and where do you see it going in the next 12 months or so?
I'd say early stage, because there's really more art to science to how you value an early stage company. I'd say that it has not seen the impact that later stage companies have had in terms of haircuts on valuation. It just they don't have the data to make those kind of calls. And then the general theme is look, investors are trying to have enough ownership to make some money, but yet leave enough skin in the game for the entrepreneurs to be motivated. So that I kind of say. But cyber, amongst all those categories, PitchBook had an article on this. AI and cyber are the top categories in investments right now. AI because it's hot, it's new, it's the belle of the ball right now, and cyber because it just isn't going anywhere. It's completely uncorrelated with the economy. In fact, I'd argue as the economy gets worse, the more threat actors are out there trying to get at your data, get at your stuff. So cyber itself is as a practice doesn't go anywhere. So now you basically just get at the flow of money, right? So there's less money chasing more companies, kind of things. So that kind of starts to equalize the valuations that people are seeing. But for the most part, cyber, in my mind, is still very strong. We still see very good deal flow. We still see a lot of competition for that deal flow. And I'm bullish. It's a good time to be a cyber investor in DC. That's all I got to say.
Awesome. Brian, you're a capital user. You agree with that?
Parts of it, but I disagree with it. And so if you look at the statistics for 22 and 23, the amount of investments in cybersecurity has dropped dramatically over the last several years. That is now starting to come back up. And some of the reasons for that has been a lot of the VCs stopped investing in new companies because they were scared to see what the impacts of COVID and the economy was going to do on their portfolio companies. So they were holding back larger chunks of money with the thought process that rather than investing in new, they needed to invest or reinvest in current to keep them alive and keep them from closing their doors. I'm starting to see that change, and I'm starting to see that shift. The other thing that I've noticed over the last couple of years is if you were a early stage startup, seed, pre-seed, often by definition, you were pre-revenue, maybe you had an MVP. Now I'm seeing the risk tolerance for investors changing. So even at that lower entry level marks, they want to see more proof related to the market. They want to see that you are actually getting more ARR in what your deliverable is. And I even have a scenario right now where I have somebody that should be doing a seed level investment that's running us through a Series A level investment for a very small chunk of money. And so the risk tolerance of investors has shifted a lot. Now, the flip side is because all those investors have been holding back to see what was happening with the economy changing, with the need for cyber, the nation state attacks, everything that we're seeing, there's a lot of money that has to go to work. And these funds are in the business of making money for returns. And so if they don't put that money to work soon, then that's going to be negatively impacting them. And we've seen a lot more people wanting to talk to us. We've seen investors that have passed on us in the past now asking to meet with us. So we're lucky. I think it's because of the product and the drive of the team, but we've been able to raise $3 million in the last couple of years and looking at, jumping to our next round now. But I know a lot of startups in the region that, haven't been able to raise $1 and they have really good ideas and really good teams.
Got it. Yeah, you're lucky, but you're also good, Brian.
Thank you.
So give me a letter.
Brian, I got a couple of points I just want to kind of accent a little bit. So yes, there is this idea of a flight to quality. It's actually, we're looking at the data just this week. So the dollars invested last quarter are tantamount to like what was invested pre-COVID. And what I would say is everybody says pre-COVID. I would say pre-inflation or pre-interest rates, right? Like it wasn't COVID that killed the flow of capital. It was interest rates, right? Like it just kind of shifted where people put their stuff, right? So the dollars invested last quarter are kind of pre-pandemic levels, 2019, 2020 levels. But the number of companies is like a third, right? So it's a flight to quality. The dollars are there. People are like doubling down on their portfolio companies because you don't want them to go to zero if possible. So you have the flight to quality piece. And then what you see then is that the quality shifts, right? So like basically it's a buyer's market versus the seller's market. So the buyers are now saying, hey, I want to pick up a Series A company at seed prices, right? Or I want to pick up a Series B company. So you have this shift in sort of valuation thinking. But guess what, guys? The VCs are getting it too, right? Like, so the LPs don't have the capital to like reinvest because there's no liquidity, there's no IPOs, there's no M&A. So the VCs are like, oh man, like I can't raise my next fund, or like basically the floor of capital is like really squeezed. So you find as it's like this market, and when the IPO market opens up, which then means the M&A market opens up, I don't know, it's going to be like all hell breaks loose in terms of capital flow. Like it's going to be crazy. Unless they raise inflation rates. But even now, the market's already like, sort of built in where we are now on interest rates. So, but that's kind of just putting a fine point on like, it's not just cyber and it's not just investors, but like the entire macro market, except for public equity, is frozen right now. And therefore, you see this flight to quality. People need to deploy capital, but they just don't know how long they need to stretch their current budget out.
Got it. Larry, as a buyer, are you licking your chops right now? What are you guys?
I think in general, they all make great points, right? Interest rates affect a lot of decisions. Other people making exits affect other decisions, right? I think if everybody just keeps on investing and you don't hear the other side of it, people get weary. I think the other thing that I would add that I see is more people are trying to get into the investment of cyber. Companies that would not even think about investing in that area are now saying, it is hot. Maybe we should be, playing a role in it or trying to invest. And some of that's scary because, they're not as educated in the cyber world and in the ecosystem. But there's no better industry, and because we're all in it, so it's easy to say that. But you look at the biotech industry. I mean, they have to raise millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then they pray that they get a win, right? And the chances of that are not easy. In the cyber industry, you can win small, you can win medium, and you can win large, and that's to me what makes this exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We're out of time right now. We'll have to put the links to your contact info so our viewers can get a hold of you when we publish the podcast. But I want to thank you, Maurice, Brian, Larry. You guys are awesome. Keep doing great things. Keep us safe, please. Thank you for everything you guys are doing out there. I'll turn things back over to Anthony, who's got the final word.
Great. Thank you. I want to thank Brian, Maurice, and Larry. Thank you all so much for joining us and sharing all of your thoughts and insights. In this region, the cyber industry is one of our most impactful and important industries, and you're all leaders in helping continue to drive it forward. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having the diverse voices.